Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us in another one of our APPI Learn by Doing with the focus on ARV. Today, we'll be talking about some of the magnificent general capabilities of consciousness. Keeping the focus on ARV, we'll have some specific things to say about improving your ARV hit rate. Now, the outline is simple. First, we'll start off talking about ARV for both newbies and oldbies, review for them. And then we'll get into the capabilities of consciousness and improving ARV hit rates. And we'll be doing two feedback sessions for these two coordinates and a brand new prediction. So we've set up this general kind of format, and it seems to be working quite well. And all of our predictions are for a month or more. So we're doing these sort of mid in terms of time, as opposed to the near term, which is like, that day or that week. We're now going out to a month, and some have been longer than that, up to almost a year. Let's now talk about ARV. First, I want to talk about it in terms of linear time. Remember, all of this is in the context of precognition, where in fact time is not linear, but nevertheless we live in the physical world where linear time dominates what we do in this physical world, including our remote viewing session starts the process off, and so it is where we really have what conceptually is a simple task. Describe and sketch your feedback target that you're going to see in the future. So this is when you, as a remote viewer, view the target that you will see, experience, do a feedback session on in the future. We are not teaching remote viewing here, but in a way we are, because we see a lot of examples. Most people come with some background in remote viewing, so I'm not going to say much more about that. Now, what is rather amazing about your personal consciousness is that it has access to information from distant places and distant times. So when you describe and sketch your feedback target, you clearly are doing a target which is someplace else and in the future. Now, the step in the future, let me see who that is. Let me mute that. The step in the future, which is critical, and you're going to hear me say that so often, I hope you don't get too tired of it, but it is so true. The key step is the feedback session, which is what you're working to describe here, right? Rather straightforward. The feedback session is when you know the truth about the feedback target. You will be looking at it. You will be sending your consciousness to that feedback target. You'll be doing everything you can to light it up, to make it, quote, visible with all of your senses to your remote viewing session. This is a non-local entanglement, to use some of the quantum mechanical words that seem to be the best model for explaining all of this. So sometime in the future, you do that feedback session. And this is where you get the information about the target. Now, to make this useful, there's always an analysis session in between, because based on what happens in the remote viewing session, you might want to take action. You know, we spend most of our tasks on doing wagering, but certainly not always. You know, we've done political predictions, for example, and ARV can be used for other things as well. But our focus here at APP is tends to be on wagering. Now, in fact, I'm more and more beginning to call it investing, since we've got a clear edge over chance now. So the analysis judging session is when you make and take some particular action based on your judgment. We're focusing on binary ARV, where there is a yes/no question, which is part of the tasking. In the past, we've done up to 20 with the Kentucky Derby. But again, those tend to be the exceptions. The focus is on binary, where you ask a yes/no question. Now, since we're binary and it's a yes/no question, it makes sense that we will establish two possible targets. One is associated with yes, one is associated with no. So you're only going to see what actually happens during the feedback session. So no matter what the prediction is, no matter what else happens, the thing you know for sure is the feedback session will contain the correct association with what actually happens. That's what makes all of this work. So when you get a good match, you get a good match to yes, hey, you have every reason to believe, and in fact, most of the time, it'll work that the good match is because you predicted the appropriate side, yes, or if it's the no target, similarly there, of course. So that's the key. The actual target shown during the feedback session will always be associated with the actual yes or no correct answer. That's ARV. Now, this is a really terrific application of precognition. It's a purposeful application of precognition. And I want to give you what I see as the definition of precognition. So this is Marty's definition. Knowledge of something in advance of its occurrence through means not accepted by society's paradigm of time. We know it's real. Those of us that have been around here, the fact that you've managed to get here, we know precognition is real. Society doesn't accept it. That's their problem. One of our major goals is to try to educate them by showing that you can apply this for making investments in a way which is far superior to really, we think at this point, any other way, but certainly not the conventional ways. Now, so ARV is an example of that. All the work that's been done with at Peer and other places with doing random number generators is also. I want to first show, here's our skeptic. Just because you guessed 100 coin flips in a row doesn't mean you're psychic. Coincidences do happen. I call 7 rotations followed by inexplicable hovering and head noises, right? Something pretty amazing. That is luck, luck, cluck, 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 cluck. Are we done now? So it's not like we're about trying to prove it. We know it's true. Jessica Utz made this statement many years ago, 1996. Precognition, in which the answer is known to no one until a future time, appears to work quite well. There's little benefit to continuing experiments designed to offer proof, since there's little more to be offered to anyone who does not accept the current collection of data. And so deep inside you, just know always that precognition is real. You can do it. It's been scientifically proved, and sort of ignore the skeptics. And now, another perspective on this is that what we are doing is clearly purposeful. We start with the tasking. We have a specific yes/no question. And again, I'm emphasizing that precognition begins with the feedback session. The cue, describe and sketch your feedback target. We use a coordinate to keep track of all this and to entangle with the feedback session. And that's why I really always suggest you say it out loud. The resonance of your voice with your body, you say it out loud again at your feedback time. That will be one mode of entanglement besides your intention, expectation. Other things that you might do, just simply working the transcript in both places, that's going to tend to entangle it. But that's why we have the coordinate, also clearly for bookkeeping. Now, what is this target? It can be other people have used objects, people have used simple ideas, lots of things. What we use in the protocol we're going to be doing today is what are called photo sites. Now, the photo site refers to a particular physical location at the time the photo was taken. Very important. You don't want to describe that site at some other time. You want to describe it when the photo was taken. And consciousness is expected to move to that site at the time the photo was taken and describe and or sketch. And usually viewers do both, a little bit of both, but not all. Some are heavy on one side, some are heavy on the other. What can be readily verified or inferred from the photo. And that, of course, is so key. I don't want a description of something that's outside the picture, because that will not do the judge any good. Now, if it's easily inferred, that's fine. And we see a lot of examples about that. But we want it to be readily inferred, because this is going to help your judge mightily. Now, first impression gestalts tend to come up early. When you first look at a photo, or when you first think of something, you tend to get the big picture of it. You get the major things which stand out. You might get the major colors, the visuals, the shapes, the dimensions. But as the session goes on, you'll get more and more details using virtually all of the nervous system inputs that you use in your normal day-to-day life. The reporting from the subconscious is through your nervous system. And so you will get all possible information about the photo site. You can get the sound, smells, tastes, etc. Okay, let me mute Catherine here. Okay, so this is what you newbie should expect. You simply set your intention, expectation, and be open to this. Now, there are a lot of formal ways to do this, and that's terrific as well. And almost all of you come with some background in this. But this is what a photo site is. what can be readily verified or inferred from the photo using all of your normal senses. Now, the target is a feedback photo site. There are two possible ones. One will be associated with yes, one will be associated with no. I frankly believe once you accept the idea of precognition, ARV is easy to understand. But if there are any questions about that, please let's ask them now before we go on. Okay, so I'm assuming you get the ARV concept. Now let's go on to the capabilities of consciousness. And precognition is the big one we'll focus on, but I think you know there are plenty others. What are called paranormal phenomena, psi phenomena, are all of the kind of capabilities of consciousness. Psychokinesis is one of the really other good examples that I like to talk about. Okay, so let's go on. Now, precognition and retro-causality are intimately connected, and I don't know, sometimes they're thought of as being separate. I really think of them as being two parts of the same phenomenon, because when you're looking at precognition, you're starting at an earlier time, gathering information from your feedback session. When you see a picture like this at the feedback time, when you're thinking of this as retro-causality, and that's just a term that's being used more and more now in their conferences, which is so marvelous. I mean, over the last 10 years or so, we really are getting more vigorous scientific kind of work on all this. And there are conferences called Retro-Causality, where from that perspective, you start with something like a feedback session and imagine retro sending the information backwards in time. But in fact, there's this entanglement between the two. And so they're really the same phenomenon, in my opinion. Now, when you see results like this, which was done by a newbie, and had no idea the target, the photo site target could have been anything that you could take a picture of, and you see this kind of agreement from a newbie, you just know consciousness has these kind of marvelous capabilities. And you just look at the track, and we worked, and we will in our next conference, we'd like to work with Play-Doh. They've done that way back when in the remote viewing days. They'd use clay and stuff, but I find Play-Doh sort of fun and inexpensive. And you see things like this. Now, this was a newbie. This could be beginner's luck. But the other thing which is important to recognize is that not everybody does that well initially. The fact that you can do that well is just the important thing to know. The person who did this didn't even want to come. He wasn't even a believer, but opened themselves up to the possibility of this during the conference, and look what happened. However, others start out, this is a hit rate curve from Donna. I don't know if Donna is here. From using this protocol, the WE protocol, Winning Entanglements protocol, which you're going to be doing later. And you can see we have the hit rate. This is hits divided by hits plus misses, passes or ignored. Here's session number. The red curve is cumulative. So when she started out early with her session, she was down 20, 30% cumulative, okay? And then she ended off at 40% cumulative from the very beginning. In fact, here are her hits and misses. Okay, so she's just about, I said 40, but you can see the curve, it says 50% here, and that's 39-40. But what's really, I think, very significant is that if you look at the blue curve, that's the average of her last 10 non-pass predictions. So early on, you can see in terms of her 10, she was down at low hit rates in terms of her last 10. In fact, here she missed her last 9 out of 10. But as her learning went up, as she improved her communication channel between, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this UCC, the universe of collective consciousness, where all this gets referred to in different ways, but all this information resides in a place which you can almost think of as being outside of space and time. She got up to 70% here, and then she actually got 9 out of 10 correct here. So you can see her 10-day moving average clearly with a very strong uptrend. And what you hope for is you asymptote up here, up near 80-90%, 99%, whatever you can get. I'm not indicating there's a limit. I doubt if people are going to stay at 100%, for hundreds of predictions. But nevertheless, that's what the blue curve is. Now, the green curve, which I think is the best measure of where you are sort of now in terms of, let's say, something like, it's never exact because you see all the oscillations that go on, but something like, what's the probability of your next prediction? So based on the last 25, she's now up at the 76% level here. So learning goes on, and guess where most of the learning happens, at least in my opinion, during the feedback session. When you know the truth, you've got your transcript, you use the feedback session to learn and just get better and better at this. And you can always get better at this, and not necessarily in the measure of the hit rate. We hope people's hit rates will get up, up here and stay roughly up here. The 25-day one will, stay roughly up here is what we think. Many years ago, we said 80% was kind of the place we're hoping more and more people will get to and stay at. But the learning will include not just maintaining that, it will include getting better at your descriptions. You may start out being weak in colors. Hey, get better at colors. Increase your ability to do precognition. You'll be able to bring this into other aspects of your life. There's entanglements. More and more, I'm just getting precognitive information spontaneously. We do this now purposely, but spontaneous precognition is out there all the time. Deja vu, knowing about a phone call. And as you do this more and more, you will just get more spontaneous ones, plus you'll find other applications. I mean, what a marvelous skill to be able to, not 100% of the time, but to be able to get information from the future. Okay, now, many of my comments are all aimed at trying to improve your ability to do ARV and to do precognition, which will also help with other side things. And just kind of bottom line, and I'm going to do more specific things, but bottom line, it's internal. It's all internal stuff. Things like your opinion of yourself is your most important viewpoint. You are infinitely greater than you think you are. Taking that point of view is important. Points of view like that, feeling really good about yourself and your capabilities, will help. But that's got to be internal to you. My telling it to you, well, and that's what this next statement is. Fine, I'm telling it to you, but do you feel it? Do you believe it deep down? You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself. And you have to make it real for yourself. Virtually everything I'm going to be saying now about a lot of this is definitely at that point of making it real for yourself. This, I don't know if the work is the right word, but this stuff that we're into, consciousness, and it is a kind of work that we're doing in the most positive sense you can imagine. You know, you're taking it on seriously to improve your life, maybe to teach society, is at the level of what I'm called consciousness vibrations at the quantum mechanical level. And Dean Radin, and he described experiments, actually later ones than this, that he's done, which clearly show that your intention can influence things down at the quantum mechanical level using the double slit experiment. So what we're talking about here is about as deep as you can get in terms of interacting with your physical body and kind of non-physical stuff, where quantum mechanics is the interface between your physical world and the kind of non-physical world, dare I say spiritual world. And meditation in this experiment, just the dramatic change here, this is what's called the Z-score. And when you get up to Z's of 5, you're well out of any chance of this being a kind of an unreal phenomenon. Meditators were far better than non-meditators, but notice even non-meditators got Z-scores of 2, -2, which is what's used in the scientific world for making decisions about whether you take various drugs, aspirin and things like this. And by the time you get down here, you can just see how much better your influence at the quantum mechanical level is. And that's because what do meditators do typically? They clear out their mind of junk, of what would be noise, the day-to-day stuff. They understand that they're going deep within themselves, and either, you know, there are a lot of different forms of meditation, but it's always connected with something bigger than yourself. You're getting the information from something bigger than yourself. You're intending to do something which is just connected to something bigger than yourself. And that's what I want to talk about now. I've put out this model before, but I really do believe it's important to sort of get it, because I really believe it'll improve your ARV, and it really connects up all of these other real psi phenomenon which we know are out there, PK being one example, real-time clairvoyance, so many other things, talking, and I don't usually say this, but I am prepared to say this now, talking, like when mediums get information from dead souls, that's a psi phenomenon. This is one of the capabilities of consciousness. So let me discuss this model again. This blue circle is what's called the universe of collective consciousness, the UCC. It is basically all that is. when, and words are obviously hard to talk about this, because if consciousness is the most fundamental thing, you don't have other real good stuff to explain it. But the best I can do is say that anything which consciousness touches is in this blue circle. Any thoughts, feelings, emotions, anything that your consciousness touches. And the thing you know the most is your own personal consciousness. So your personal consciousness is in here. Well, so's mine. So's everybody else's. So are all sentient beings anywhere in the physical universe, anywhere outside of space and time. If they have something we would call consciousness, they would call consciousness, it's in the blue circle. Okay? So that's what I mean by everything. The physical world, you know, based on your conscious experience of it. So the whole physical world is in here. This red circle, we'll talk about that, could be anything. But this is the collection of all of those things. Now, something which you really have to get is this circle really has no boundary. I have to draw it this way, but there is no boundary. Because if you think about anything that you say, hey, maybe that's outside the circle, it's touched your consciousness. So this is literally everything. But as put together, it's the ultimate definition of oneness and harmony, because it's just sort of there. It's everything. Now, what about this red thing here? Michael, can you turn off your mic? Okay. What about this red thing here? See, we, with our personal consciousness, we're not the blue thing. I think we can all agree with that. We bring things out. Okay? Well, there's no such thing as a boundary. So when we bring things out, it can't be completely separated from the circle, so it has a fuzzy boundary. So this fuzzy boundary is still connected, and I think it's appropriate to think of that as being what connects you with all that is. So you, if you're this red thing, however you see yourself, well, you're really more than that, because your fuzzy boundary connects you up with everything else. So, okay, so that's really the uncertainty principle. I'm giving you actually an interpretation of quantum mechanics that connects up with consciousness being even more fundamental than quantum mechanics. Now, events are things. What is an event? An event is a series of nows that you give meaning to. You go to a baseball game, all kinds of things happen during that baseball game. You have your hot dog, you watch the game. Okay, but that baseball game clearly has a fuzzy boundary. You know, how is it really exactly defined? I'll tell you, your life. If you want to, your life is in here. And what does it consist of? In this context, it consists of every one of your conscious moments, all of which happen to be entangled with vibrations of your personal DNA. That's like a signature. Okay? So all of that is in here. But if one of the things which we fortunately can do is forget some of these past moments. They're out there, but you know, you don't want to be aware of them all the time. You never could operate. You could never focus if your conscious mind, the here now conscious mind, was aware of all of your past moments. So we can decrease some entanglement, right? So that's what we did here. All of the stuff which is there that you might have experienced, your events, different things, you can ignore those, fortunately. Well, let's make the connection now with ARV, because not only can you decrease entanglement, you can increase entanglement. And so remote viewing session, let's say that's here. Now this is an event, right? It has lots of now moments. You're receiving information, etc. You're doing your remote viewing session, and it clearly has a fuzzy boundary. Does it start when you write the coordinate down? Well, you know, it's got a fuzzy boundary. But you're doing your session, but through this fuzzy boundary, you're entangling with, guess what? The feedback session. That's your intention. That's your expectation. Now, one of the things which you can do is increase that entanglement. You can make a stronger and stronger handshake, if you will, between these two separate events. That's how ARV occurs in this model. And so where is it working? And this is what I'm trying to get you to get as deep as I can help you do it, but you have to do it. It's happening at this deep subconscious level, which is going into and entangling with another part of the UCC. It's not radio waves, it's going deep, deep down. Okay? Now, I want to look at this another way and then talk a little bit about what I think can really help all of us. Whether you're talking about the remote viewing session or the feedback session. So for now, we can think of these, you know, which are obviously strongly entangled, and that's what we want to do. But if this is the remote viewing session, think of that as being entangled here with the feedback session. If this is the feedback session, okay, so now we're thinking retro-causality, you're thinking about that as being entangled with the remote viewing session. Everything is happening in the UCC. So here we are. This is the thing which we're bringing out and talking about. And we want to make these entanglements as strong as possible. Well, the gestalt that's actually in the target, that's a really good thing to entangle here. So that's what all of this is trying to show. But there are also, you know, sub-elements in there. You know, the trees on the mountain, the snows on the mountain. There are all kinds of elements. Well, we want to entangle with those as well. So doing the ARV and even straight remote viewing as best we can is we want to get as many of these entanglements as possible, again, by going deep down into the UCC, through the fuzzy boundary, and then connecting up. And intention, expectation are the main things that you do there. Now, notice I've changed and I've added new things which in fact you want to avoid, which I believe cause the noise which we see and cause the displacement which we see. You know, yes, there's some elements here. Maybe you connect partially with the gestalt. Here's your ARV session. You don't want connections with your ARV session, right? You don't want that. That wasn't here. You don't see the ARV session here. Yes, it's down in the UCC, right? It's there, but you don't want to entangle with it. You don't want to entangle with any of the other negatives that are going on in your life. You know, we know from lots and lots of experience, if you're in a really bad place, it's difficult, even with really good cool down, to get rid of that. It is now entangled with everything at a higher level than you would like. What if your IAE, I'm using for intention, attention, expectation, what if your intention wasn't really as weak, was weak, and it wasn't really as strong as it should have been? Well, that's kind of known. That could be a reason which you weren't doing as well as you might have. But the biggies are, well, and then fatigue. It turns out Dean, in his experiments, have noticed that. He noticed that if people are really tired, they don't do as well. Well, maybe you're fatigued, okay? So that fatigue is entangled during your session, and then that goes and gets connected to here. What about the biggie is, in my opinion, fear. You know, there are a lot of different levels of fear, and you might not even use the word fear sometimes, and yet it's probably connected to some deep fear if it's a negative in some way. Weak beliefs about psi, losing confidence in yourself, which, you know, that's actually kind of related from fear. Notice I've got these crossing all over the place now. I think that's where you get noise, or from an ARV session, you can easily get displacement if you're entangled with that. Okay, so you obviously want to minimize these things. Now, another way of looking at this, and I like this. This is more PK oriented, but they're really all the same thing from the perspective of the UCC. Here, the point is, do not try to bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth. Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends. It is only yourself. You want to become like one with the feedback session. During the feedback session, you want to connect up as much as you can with the remote viewing session, right? That makes sense. You want to be as entangled as much as you can, have as little noise as possible. But I want to connect this with fear. This is an actual quote, and I'm not even going to tell you who did this because I'm not 100% sure I remember it right. But this is what was said. This was said with a person on the airplane thinking of precognition, and suddenly stopped, experienced raw fear, because what if I accidentally disable a key part of the airplane engine and this plane crashes? Got in touch with that level of fear. Now, this is Marianne Williamson. I don't know her, but this is from a book, A Return to Love, A Course of Miracles. She wrote a book about her experience, I guess, with that. And I really think there's some truth in this. But a lot, you know, what resonates with you is what matters. But our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Wow, what if that plane crashed? Wow, what if my ARVing, I'm so successful that I'm a different person, and my wife doesn't like me anymore. I actually had, let me take a pause. In fact, I brought that up. I had this actually happen many years ago at the remote, a remote viewing class I was giving with Skip Atwater at the Monroe Institute. and we were talking about reasons, causes of noise and reasons why you might do displacement. And one man came up with the fact related to money, that if he got a lot of money, he was afraid, okay? He didn't doubt that he could do this, but he was afraid that he would start fooling around and he would get divorced from his wife, mess up his family, and he didn't want to do all that. So he did not want to get rich. He had that fear, which, you know, it wasn't obvious with him, but during the webinar, it became obvious. So I think there may very well be lots of fears down there that are unconscious, that are important. And when you're in your feedback session, and especially when you get misses, you might just be open and ask your subconscious if there's something like that going on. And this is how you deepen yourself. I mean, this whole process is so deepening, getting in touch with your deep self. Okay, how about this? What makes you think that you deserve therapy for low self-esteem? Okay, do we have parts of us which don't feel really good about ourselves? Yeah, I think we all do. And of course, we want to remove those, set those aside during our ARVing, hopefully get rid of them and maintain a positive expectation. This positive expectation is really important. And you know you're not perfect yet. Someone once said, God is not done with me. You know, expressions like that. And I like to look at it as there's always more to learn. You know, the idea that as you learn something, all that does is open up more things for you to learn. And that's the kind of attitude you have, whether you get a hit, a miss, or pass. You're always expecting for the long term that you're just on a really positive, wonderful path, and enjoy it. I want to bring one other element into this, which I also believe is very important. And that is this idea of love. We've had a number of talks by this Ulysses Di Corpo, an Italian guy, who connects up syntropy. He's got this interpretation of quantum mechanics, and the idea of syntropy goes actually back a long way. And it was first introduced as a unified theory of the physical and biological world. So it included the idea of consciousness, of life. Now, his whole idea here is that syntropy, which is a standard physics concept that tends to have things go more towards disorder, produces effects that diverge from the past. Syntropy starts with attractors and moves backwards in time to get an effect. And both of these things are going on at the same time. So here's where syntropy starts in the future, and it has what are called attractors, in the sense that this effect, if you will, is partially causality in the normal sense. See, this is referred to as retro-causality. Here you have an incident and it has a cause, but from here the effect is attracted to this. So it's a cause only if you think of things as being retro-causal. But guess what? That's just the way it is. We fit into this model Exactly. Because the past is the tasking. The effect we're looking for here is a remote viewing session. The attractor is the feedback session. Okay? And I ask you, now we usually think of this as being short term, but the same idea works for the long term. And you should think about it that way. You're constantly looking for those positive attractors, which will improve your RV sessions, your hit rates, everything that you're doing. Now, let me ask probably a rhetorical question, but what better attractor than love? Okay, so for both the long term, for the short term, this whole idea of connecting love with the fact that you are, you look at the title of the books in our field, and it basically is saying that you're essentially limitless. And that's because you're connected to the UCC. Okay? Your capabilities are limitless. Your conscious universe, you're a part of it, opening to the infinite. Your soul, a non-physical part of you, is connected. Uh, and love is the right connector, I think, for all of this. This is a rather famous Christian uh, mystic, and he he wrote this: our duty as men and women is to proceed is as if limits to our ability did not exist, do not exist. We are collaborators in creation. And that's what's so kind of amazing about all this. The UCC is something which we are collaborators in creating in a way which is almost impossible, maybe impossible actually, for us to understand, because in the physical world, we're living in space and time, and this stuff is going in a different way outside of space and time. So you really create the short and long-term attractors living your life, and make those loving attractors. Okay, so love is the strange attractor, the allurement that holds the universe together. Love, obviously, health, nothing wrong with loving wealth, especially in the deepest sense of that word, which is to have that wealth and use it in a way which helps others, helps society, truly is for the greater good. That's where the word came from, the word wheel, W-E-A-L. And one of the things which I really would like you to appreciate with everything I'm telling you, the future is so intimately connected to the present and to the past that you yourself, your older, wiser, loving you, is at play here. And really work to get a sense of that. That will really improve your ARV, that I'm using everything that I know and that I'm learning now, but that I've learned from the future, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. All of that is being applied right now. So it isn't only this session, the short term where I'm exchanging information, I'm also using the knowledge on how to do that and all of that I've learned. So your older, wiser self is around. So hopefully some of this will resonate with some of you, so you can make it real, because again, you have to make this real for yourself. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. That was Teddy Roosevelt. Gandhi said, if I have the belief that I can do it, I shall surely acquire the capacity to do it, even if I may not have it at the beginning. And I'm suggesting the idea of affirmations. I think affirmations are really a good thing, that in the here and now, you affirm something as being true. Even though, this particular affirmation is pretty easy, but sometimes you make affirmations that you haven't quite acquired the capacity yet, but you're going to get it. Affirmations are really great for that. But this affirmation I'm suggesting to you is, my ARVing is a good and loving thing. Thing in the sense of the UCC. We're looking at ARVing. We've been focusing on it. It's part of our journey. And really get into the fact that it's good, it's positive, and it's loving. And everything I'm doing is for not only my good, but even a greater good. I'm involved in something which is really big. I'm helping to create this UCC in a really good, positive way. I did one other one here. I can and will provide a good description of any RV target. And you need to come up with affirmations that are meaningful to you. This one I put together after there was so much discussion about displacement, and people often use excuses that, that was a terrible target, or a terrible pairing, or a terrible this, or a terrible that. You're strong enough that you get over any of that. Don't be negative about it. I want to talk about spirituality here just a little bit. Schrodinger, Erwin Schrodinger, the famous quantum mechanical Schrodinger equation. These guys were forced to think about this very, 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 very hard because of their results. The fact that particles and waves, and you didn't know about something until you measured it, until it became conscious. That's what a measurement is. That's making something conscious. So the Vedanta teaches that consciousness is singular. All happenings are played out in one universal consciousness. The UCC is what I'm using for that. And there's no multiplicity of selves. And I think he means selves in a very general sense there, that you really have no boundaries. Ultimately, there's only one major universal consciousness. Okay, so you're entangled with everything. Here's a definition of spirituality. Now, this is from Nancy Scooters, the way we all know her. She's Joe's wife. And she was asked to put together a definition of spirituality, a brief one. And this is what she came up with. And I just want to share it with you. Spirituality references the metaphysical, that which goes beyond the material, mundane world. It includes a conscious sense of that which is greater than the individual egocentric self, and embraces a connection to a unifying principle and all that is. Spirituality is about how we perceive, connect with, and bring this greater unifying principle into our lives. Into our lives. It is about consciously living from a more transcendent space of love, gratitude, kindness, compassion, non-judgment, inclusiveness, respect, and honor for all beings, resulting in a perception and experience of the profound sanctity and interconnectedness in all life. Isn't that beautiful? And I believe that what we're doing is in fact spiritual when this is the attitude you're taking with your ARV work. This is the attitude of going this deep and connecting with all that is, connecting with the UCC and living your life that way, living the ARV part of your life that way. You know, I guess I do know why these classes really go so long, because there's just so much I want to share. This happens to be something which I found, and it's wisdom from the mouth of babes. This was a group of professionals, and I don't really even remember the fine details of who did this, but there were a group of 4 to 8-year-olds, and they were asked this question: what does love mean? And these were good ones. I'm going to show you what I think are even better. When my grandmother got arthritis, she couldn't bend over and paint her toenails anymore, so my grandfather does it for her all the time, even when his hands got arthritis too. So that's love. Love is when you go out to eat and give somebody most of your French fries without making them give you any of theirs. Okay, so those are kind of cool. This one is maybe what you'd expect from a kid this age. But wait till you see these. If you want to learn to love better, you should start with a friend who you hate. Isn't that something else? And I really believe that's so beautiful. The people here said we need a few million of these people who understand that. This gets to what is your attitude towards misses? You know, we certainly get upset. You probably have a little bit of hate in it for a while, but really learn to love them. This is the best time for you to learn, is with your misses. Okay, there's another one down here I want to share with you. You really shouldn't say, I love you, unless you mean it. But if you mean it, you should say it a lot. People forget. Really get into the fact that you love yourself, you love your subconscious. The UCC, the whole connectivity of this is such a marvelous thing that, you know, get into loving it. You know, spend some conscious time sharing the loving. Now, this final one, I don't know, you just had to share it. The winner was a 4-year-old child whose next door neighbor was an elderly gentleman who had recently lost his wife. Upon seeing the man cry, the little boy went into the old gentleman's yard, climbed onto his lap, and just sat there. When his mother asked what he had said to the neighbor, the little boy said, "Nothing, I just helped him cry." I think that's just beautiful. Love your spirituality. Love the fact that we're all entangled. Love yourself. And guess what? All of that will actually help your ARV. You know, we're embedding something which is good. Okay, so after going to that really, really high level, I want to talk about one other thing here, which is, you know, as you're doing this journey, you are going to have things which you yourself have come to believe is good for you, stuff that resonates with you. Okay, how to improve your ARV. You know, I really shouldn't do this when I'm tired. That one might resonate with you. I really shouldn't be rushed. Oh my God, I really had a bad day today and I really shouldn't force this. I just should let it go. I'm not going to do one today. this discipline to do what resonates with you, discipline to do what you believe is good for improving your ARV hit rate. What do you believe right now is the best protocol for your RV, AJ, and feedback sessions? Now, I can't be the only one who has really felt that there's certain things which I should do, certain things which I shouldn't do, and I didn't have the discipline to go along with that. I think that happens to all of us, right? I think you would would agree with that. And just take notice of that, be aware of that, and work on that discipline. I mean, this is being self-consistent with yourself. Discipline to do what feels best for you, and discipline to do what you think is best for you. I mean, the marvelous thing about ARV is there's so much of you in it. Remote viewing is you. Feedback is you. If you self-judge, it's you. And yet, in doing all that, it's not egocentric you. It's a much bigger part of you that you are, in fact, expanding. Okay, so I'm ending it with this segment with that. Any questions and comments? Don't see it. What did Jack say? Okay, ask what you turn on your mic if you want. Okay. I hope you're seeing the screen. Yeah, you must be. Someone would have said something. You must fully understand what it does before they can accept anything to do with psi. What do you mean by the ARV session? Isn't that
can
the
you hear me? This is Jack.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
When you had the big blue circle up and
Yeah,
had everything connected together, and then you brought up the red stuff that would be better not to connect to. You had ARV session off separate, and I guess I'm not clear on what you mean. Is that different from the remote viewing session, or isn't that the same thing?
Good point. And I actually said ARV session. You want to know something? That was a mistake.
Oh, okay.
I meant judging session. Thank you. I'm going to even change it now so it's in my master, if I can find it. Did I pass it?
No, it's back farther.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's the judging session. It's the judging session that is in the UCC, of course. Yeah, it's part of this series. Here it is. Yeah.
There it is, right there.
All right. So this is the AJ session.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that'll be saved. So let's, any other questions and comments like that? And I appreciate that. And, hey, criticisms, suggestions for improving what I do, I am open to all of that. In fact, I encourage all of that.
I posted a link to Marianne Williamson's. Her actual quote is a lot longer than what you've got.
I'm sure.
But it's even more poignant to exactly what your point you were making.
Okay, very good.
Really powerful.
Let me take a look at that. Let me see what happened to I lost my chat box. So you do have the whole quote there? Let's make it part of. Oh,
yeah.
you have the link there.
It's twice as long as what you've got. I mean, what you have is the solid base of it.
Are you seeing the chat box there?
Yes.
Okay, good. So people then who are looking at it in the webinar can go there if they want to.
Right.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other comments, questions, suggestions? And Jack, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, let's now do feedback. So this is, I just can't get all of it on the page so it's readable anymore, but we have like 39 of these. We're going to do the yellow ones. We'll do feedback for these two, and then we'll do a new prediction, which is the blue one. So let's do that now. So the first one is, will the Dow Jones Industrial Average be over 2,600 on February 19th? You know, and we did this a month earlier. And we predicted yes, but in fact, it's a miss. And here's the 2,600 level. This is a stock chart. The prices and everything are here. I'm not going to go over this in any detail, but this is daily, and you can see the way it moved. This was the big drop that we've had recently. So anyway, the Dow was under 26,000, and we had a group miss. And what really is important to get is it's your personal prediction that matters. I am still working on how to the best use group predictions. Ultimately, I believe group predictions will give us an additional edge over what each of us can build up personally. You know, that makes sense, and I believe it'll happen. So far, because of the nature of our groups, which involve beginners, people who are not doing well, etc., we haven't been super successful. We've had some successes. We have one group, a couple of groups that are doing really well, but I'm still trying to improve it. Okay, but it's the personal predictions that matter. So now the question is, how do I get my feedback target? So, funny you should ask. Let's do it now. So everything is done online and with a server, which keeps all the data. We're really, really big on data, and we encourage you to put things in text boxes so you can go back later. Arthur?
Yes.
You got to turn off your mic. Okay, I just did it for you. Oh, thank you. Okay, so everything is done online. We're really big on data, and I believe you should be too, because looking at your data will in fact give you a real opportunity to learn. And you know, the more you do this, the more data there is, and you can go back and look at your own comments and hit rate and stuff like that. So the way this whole process starts, I'm looking for my email here. Let me show the taskbar. Okay. So the way this starts is with a tasker, and we are organized by groups, and that's the only way we can kind of manage the number of tasks that we set out. So we're always sending out tasks to groups. And the first coordinate, so here there are two feedbacks. Let's get the right one. The first one we're going to do, okay, so you're now seeing on your screen the feedback part. I'll show you the tasking later, but now we're into the feedback. And here is the question, which I just showed you. Will the Dow Jones Industrial Average be over 26,000? So here in an email came the answer, which was no. And so as we discussed, and I think you understand, there were two possible photo sites. But now that we know the answer is no, we now want to find what is the target, which is the photo site that was associated with no. And all you have to do, this protocol really is easy in terms of doing it. You just click on this, and everybody has a different target. And so you have to put in your username. And I'm representing all of us in these webinars, and so I'm just putting in my name, and there it is. So there is the feedback target for 839606. And we're about to do the feedback session, and then after you're done, this is an example of where you can put in your thoughts, your feelings, what was going on with you, whatever you want to put in there that you believe will help you, because this, whatever you put here, is now available to you in the future. Okay, so now let's get back to the presentation. I made a copy of that, and so that's what we have here. And then I went in and found a couple of transcripts to show, and I would like us now to do and talk about feedback. Some of you may have your sessions that you did if you happen to do this one. But here is Donna. Okay, I don't see Donna here. So I will talk about this a little bit and maybe even get into it. But the concept is pretty straightforward. And that is, here you are at your feedback session time. So we're now doing feedback. And I got my target. I've got my transcript. I have my transcript with the judging. And let me just take a moment to talk about that. Notice you can see she used red and blue here. Red for A, A's, and what does that mean? Well, that means that beige in this case matched the target photo site A. Remember, she did this at judging time on her original transcript. And we really recommend every single element, every single sketch should have either an A or a B or both. Usually there's some where there's an A and a B, because you could get matches to photo site A as well as photo site B. And that here, in fact, that may be an example right there where white was in both. You know, white tends to be in a lot of things. So that's what she did in terms of the colors. And then we count them up. You can do ratios of them during judging. And we'll talk about judging later when we actually do it a little bit more. Now, doing the feedback session, and notice at this time, she probably knows whether she had a hit or a miss. She probably went through a little bit of emotions on that, and was aware of that, and that's fine. But now her focus is on entangling this transcript with this number, and I'm going to try now to go into a mode which might be something similar to what she would do. So first I would go 839606, and I'm feeling that in my body, vibrating through like all the cells in my body, going down through my subconscious, into the UCC, and connecting up when I said 839606 at the remote viewing session time. Okay, and I'm only going to focus on the good stuff. Like I see blue there. You know, I didn't really study this before, so she would know this better than I know it. So I guess I'm making an apology here. So she didn't mark some things that I see. I'm circling outdoors. I would call this outdoor. I'm looking at her pictures. No, none of those. Oh, look at this support thing here. The kind of skinny stuff connecting up. I see a lot of that. Oh yeah, I like that. That's good. That's my bees. The smooth, cool like metal. Oh yeah, that was really good. I'm feeling that again. Cool like metal. I'm looking at it and I'm emphasizing and sort of getting again how consciousness deals with cool and metal. Yeah, it's moving. Yes, yes, it's moving. I'm looking at this plane, and you know what? While this isn't a plane, I can see some similarity to that. Okay, I'm not going to dwell on that. Um, and then I say, gee, but why didn't I get, in terms of colors, kind of the gray, black, white, gray nature? I look at this and kind of the gestalt that I'm seeing now um, is black, white, and gray. I mean, you know, there aren't a lot of colors. I noticed she did blue, and I do see a little blue right there. Okay, but that's not major gestalt like. Major gestalt like, I wish I had gotten black, white, gray. I'm going to pause for a moment and actually see the black, see the white, but get a sense of the gray. This is what gray looks like. This is what my consciousness does with gray. Okay, so I did the colors. Now structure. Now maybe my subconscious was trying to say structure, and by the time it got up, it did a house. But what I'm going to try to do now, and I will actually sketch this probably on another sheet of paper if this is my transcript, because I don't have room, something which looked more like this, totally, I don't know how to say, thin, line-like. Um, I would just draw something simple. You know what? It says I could do this. And you don't want to make it sketch-like. You want to make it something like what you could do during your RV session, you know, relatively crude, a sketch-like. But I see a lot of those here. You know, I might do on another sheet of paper, you know, something like that. But I also see, look down here, I see some round stuff. You know, I see some round stuff. I would draw it, physically draw it. And that's telling my subconscious, hey, next time you get something like that, why don't you do it? This is what it looks like. When something looks like that, why don't you do a little sketch like that? Also, I have a sense of long. I'm right now seeing something which looks very long. I would write long here. Okay, so I think you have the idea. I would then actually write end of session. I use EOS. Some people just do and then I would do EOS of the feedback. Finish that feedback session. Let's go on. No. Let's see what happens. It's the first time I've ever used their annotation. How do I turn that off? Escape. Oh, I see here, I bet. Mouse, select, text, draw. Here. Oh, okay. So that's now done. Oh, I'm going to have to remove this eraser. Huh. First time I've used this feature in Zoom. Kind of interesting. Now, the 5-second rule started, I don't know where. We did it with our kids, and our kids are doing it with their kids around food. Some kinds of food, you drop and you tell them, hey, if you eat it quickly within 5 seconds, it's okay. The germs haven't had a chance to get on there. And this is to be used whenever you're in a negative mode. And it's true. What happened here? And it's true for both your feedback session, judging, and remote viewing session. If there are things, negativity will come up. Basically, it's that old other saying, when life gives you lemon, make lemonade. Switch it into something positive really quickly. Just stay as positive as you can. So I wanted to bring that here. Now here's the second transcript. This is Anita. Yeah, you're here, Anita. Good. How about if you, Anita, are you still here? And you've got a mic. Why don't you do a feedback session as close as you can? This obviously isn't as home, but maybe you can do one here.
Okay.
And let me point out before you start that you gave yourself, notice on the previous one, the CRs weren't there. I do like you to put it on just to remind you when you look at it.
Yeah.
You gave yourself a 6 on this. So even though we got a miss, so there was some good stuff on the other side, you knew as soon as you saw this that you got a hit, right? And that felt good. And it should. When you get a miss, you feel whatever. When you get that good feeling, man, play it up. Enjoy it. As much joy as possible. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and do what you might do as a real feedback session.
Okay. At first, I got this almost like a spider thing with strange spiky legs and squares and circles. Motion here at the bottom, circular motion. Lots of parallel things like the stripes I draw there at the bottom. Words I didn't get as much. I got white and blue, metal, industrial, oily smell. Well, I don't know what it will smell like, but it looks like it's mechanical.
Definitely.
And that's basically it. Object, article, item. Strange dusk. It was like limelight between day and night. So I think that was quite an interesting session.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I especially like this because there's just so much, again, skinny, straight, rod-like stuff around, and you gave both Bs. And this, I don't think you gave this a B, but there just are a lot of square stuff around.
Yeah, and it's just above that, the clouds and the white and the blue with that. It's wow.
Now, do you, when you do your feedback sessions, add something that you wish you had done? Hey, sub, let me teach you something new that I wish you had done. I wish you had gotten. Do you typically do that or not?
Not usually, but like the spiky thing that looks like a spider, I could have written next to it, spiky legs and arms like a spider.
Do you think this thing is moving? I don't have as much sense of emotion.
Maybe slowly.
Yeah, I
But
don't.
yeah.
I'm
But
trying to.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's weird. The motion I got is like circular, like it's moving around the earth.
The Earth, right? Which is, yeah. Which is
It was kind of
you got that.
fascinating.
Okay, yeah. I know the subconscious just gives you all kinds of good stuff, and everybody gets something different, even for the same target.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking at this and seeing how you might, round. Well, you got the circular. Not only is there round here, and so, but the Earth itself is round. And I'm just, as a suggestion to you, and maybe this one isn't as obvious as other times, but sometimes when you miss something which you wish you had gotten, a major gestalt or something like that, take a few moments to actually spend time with it and basically get into that with your consciousness. And the intention and expectation is that you're now teaching your consciousness, so it will give that back to you the next time something similar comes up. So
absolutely.
Doesn't that make sense?
Yes.
So that's how you would learn. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's go to the second one. And this is the Apple stock one. And Apple stock, the question there was, will Apple stock be over 170? And this is the chart, which I just did today, but we're going back to this date. It was on the 7th. And the answer is yes, because there's 170 right there. And so that then led to, and I don't think I'm going to take the time to go and actually click on it. But again, it's very simple. The general group manager sends out an email, click on it, and up comes this graphic right here. And so here's the graphic. And that coordinate was 519089. When you first looked at this, did you get some first impression, what I call first impression gestalts? Possibly and different people will sometimes get different things, but the color is what came in to me, this blue, and then multiples, almost circle-like, but multiples, and then alive. Those would be examples of first impression gestalts. Here is Lila. There you are, Lila. Okay. Maybe you can turn on your mic. Notice what she has done here before I let her take over. Notice again the A and B's on each one. This is beautiful. And notice she had a pass here. Anything under 3.5, we'll be talking about the grading system shortly, but anything under a 3.5 on a 0 to 7 scale. But it doesn't matter. You still do full up feedback session and really get into it and learn. Okay, go ahead, Lila.
Yeah, so I remember this one, and we did do it on the webinar, and I have on my paper here in front of me, B was a 3 or a 3.5. So I did raise my bottom score. But anyway, yeah, so I got a hit, personal hit on this one, and I think my biggest indicator was the ideogram with the circle and the little circle in between. Mm-hmm. And then the one next to it with it kind of going outwards.
Oh, yeah, all of these lines and all of those lines. Yep.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. And then I think my color precepts were very helpful. dimensions, just everything, and my dynamics bunched up and squished together.
Yeah,
That's what feathers are.
yeah. And even wiggly, I would think, matches. This is a snap.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
stationary.
yeah, that's true. Wiggly. Okay, I'll go ahead and mark that now.
Yeah.
Cacophonous in my sounds. They make a horrible shrieking sound. I don't know if you've ever heard a peacock scream.
I see.
But they sound, we have wild peacocks here in La Honda, and they scream like a child in distress.
Okay.
So
you didn't mark loud.
Loud bursts.
Oh, okay. That was one expression. I see it. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and when they fan their feathers out, that's a large burst.
Yes.
To me.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I really could have scored it a lot higher.
And
all right.
And let me say something about that for a moment. This is the time when, and I have to be kind of careful about this, and everybody does it a little bit differently. It might be after you formally end your feedback session. In fact, that is frankly what I recommend, is if you have maybe a pass or a miss or even otherwise, that you now say, am I comfortable with the judging? You don't want to spend too much time, again, being negative, but you do want to improve your judging. So what you said is totally appropriate, Lila.
Okay.
Because next time, maybe I should have graded this one higher in retrospect. And it isn't one time that's going to get your judging better for you, because everybody, is a little bit different. But by doing that over and over again and evaluating that against whether it was a hit or miss or a pass versus what actually happened, your judging will also improve.
Okay.
So I do recommend that you do bring that idea in. If you can do it in a positive way, you can do it during the feedback, because you are in fact looking at the target and sharing it with the UCC and entangling it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But as long as it's done in a positive way, sometimes when you get a miss, it's better to do it after the feedback, because you're going to be bitching at yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lila. Very nice.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, and this, I think this was Danila. Is this you, Danila?
Yes, it's me.
Yeah, good. Hi. Yeah, I know you're relatively new.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you scored this one, but why don't you just go ahead and do a feedback session? You know what I mean?
Yep.
First, say the coordinate out loud with the sense of it entangling with the remote viewing session, and then pick it up from there.
519089. So I see blue shapes that are rounded multiples. Yeah, alive. Green. Yeah. Shadows. Yeah. Well, what I noticed most was this first multiples rounded with different colors and shapes. Mm-hmm. I had this image of something clearer and something that was darker. Mm-hmm. This was a vision that I had, first of all. And then I started to write down some perceptions.
Okay, and what you'll do now is just say reinforce that. You know, you might circle this. I mean, this was really good.
Mhm.
And the blue cyan, look at all the B's you got. You should be feeling really good about this.
Yeah.
And
Great.
you know,
This is great.
yeah,
I did it. Yeah.
exactly. No, and you know what? Do it that way. Get
Yeah.
excited about it. You know, that lets
Yes.
your sub know, hey, okay, this is the kind of thing we like. Guess what? Your sub
Yeah.
likes to feel happy too. Don't you
Yeah.
think? Um,
Yeah.
so reinforce it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really feel really good. This was a good session. Look at all the B's. I don't know what
Yeah.
ranking you gave. Again, I would just recommend that on your transcript, you put the CRs. That helps you remember it. But you can look here. You clearly went to the B side. You know, it looks to me like you should have given yourself a really good score.
Mm.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Danilo. That's now. Oh no, let me ask you one other thing, because I do think you do this every time. What didn't you get that you want to learn and focus on now?
For me, at the moment, it's difficult to say that, to answer to you, because sometimes I have good visuals, sometimes I have good descriptions.
Right.
And I noticed that it doesn't matter what, because you, by doing a little session, you have a sort of general idea of the target.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, yeah.
Okay, well, you got to buy a lot. You got a lot here, and sometimes you don't have to add anything, you know, if it doesn't feel right to you, but there will be times when it will. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions, comments on the feedback session, the most important session, in my opinion, for increasing your hit rate? You know, you would usually think it's the remote viewing session, but it's the feedback session and that entanglement. Obviously, you want to do a good remote viewing session too, but okay. Very good. So let's do a prediction. So the prediction we're going to do is down here. Will a Bitcoin futures contract, and it turned out I work a lot with interactive brokers. You know, nowadays we're doing real investing. And there's a future contract, and you may not understand all of this terminology, and interestingly enough, you don't have to, because it's no different than the Dow Jones. It's just a price that moves up and down. And will be over 10,000 on April 23rd of 2018. I'll show you a chart of its motion so you'll understand the 10,000 number. But what's always important is that the tasking be specific enough, so specific that you will always have an outcome. And so that's why the specific date, the specific time, since it fluctuates, it's at 1 p.m. Okay, so let's get that one now, because we have to get a coordinate. And I know some of you guys that have been around, once you get the coordinate, you may start, and that is absolutely fine. You know, I'll lead you into doing the full session and the judging. Well, the full session. Okay, but first I am talking and not finding. There it is. Okay, so here is again the group manager will have sent out this email, and they do that for all the different groups. So this group is the webinar workshop group. Each person then would simply click here. Here's the Bitcoin futures that I just said. So here it is again, put theirs. And then you simply click here. And now you put in your email address. That's so this email address will get both the prediction and the feedback. So you have to obviously put yours in. Here's the webinar workshop group is clicked. These are all the other possible groups. And we'll do one coordinate, not two coordinates. Some people actually can do two coordinates for this. I'm not going to talk about that. Right now, everybody is doing one coordinate. And there it is. So all I did was click on it, and on the top of a sheet of paper, here's your coordinate. You can even say it out loud now. We're all a part of this. 738505. That is the coordinate for the prediction about the Bitcoins. After we finish that, then you'll need to upload a transcript in your group, and that goes and becomes part of the record. Some people have independent judges. That's the way your independent judge would get the transcript. And it's also available, to you for a later time. So it'll be on the server. But right now, having the coordinate, that's all you need to do a remote view session. So now let's talk about the remote viewing session. Okay, so that was the tasking. This is the specific futures contract. And again, things just change. In the financial markets, that's almost always what you're looking at, which are changes in prices. These are daily changes. This is a particular futures contract that'll be due on May 16th. I have been thinking about actually having a class at home where I talk about this stuff in detail. My home. Anyway, period. So you can see it goes up and down. And it actually has been as high as, I think, like almost 20,000 or so. It's come down from there. Cryptocurrencies were really big and hot, but they're now come down. But who knows about the 10,000? So that's the question we're asking, a yes, no, simple yes, no question. And I got the coordinate already. I'm just sort of reminding you, we're getting ready to go into what is called cool down, which is very important. That's where you get rid of the day-to-day stuff and open yourself up to getting the information via the UCC from the truth point at the feedback session, which will be about a month or so from now. But time doesn't matter. You just open yourself up and the information is there, as you've seen. You've seen some really good sessions. But what you're doing now is setting up your intention to entangle with the feedback session for that coordinate. This is you. You're going to do all of that through your fuzzy boundary. Here is just a kind of a reminder of what you've seen. These are all the kinds of categories and examples, good examples of the kind of words that you can get because you're having information come in through your normal nervous system. And your normal nervous system can report on all this stuff, the colors, sounds, smells, tastes. It gets motion, big, small dimensions. You get these what are called aesthetic impacts where you might be afraid. You might be amazed, you might be anxious. All of these kinds of feelings, words come in, which you put down on your transcript. And then sketches, of course, as you've seen, are really important. Love sketches because they're no intellectual, analytical stuff involved. You just kind of want to witness what comes up directly from your subconscious. Now, again, this idea of intention, attention, and expectation being three key ideas. And notice these are ideas. I mean, we have them in the physical world through our consciousness, but they're really kind of non-physical. They, again, are down at this UCC level of the pure consciousness. And what Joe McMonagle and Ed May concluded, Joe's probably the best public remote viewer out there. Ed May's been involved in this for very, very long, back at SRI days, first-class scientist. And what is clear, at least to those of us on our long-established team, is that intention, attention, and expectation play a very important role in the success of both application and research of remote viewing. You know, obviously there are other ideas, some of which we've talked about, that get involved, but it's hard to argue with these three. Intention, right now you're intending to connect up with the future information for your coordinate. You're paying attention to what comes up from the sub, and you're expecting all of this to work out beautifully. You're going to get a really good match. So the expectation is kind of at the confidence level. You're expecting good things. And then we know the cue. Okay, so I can send people this sheet of paper. A lot of people, as you saw, will write down some of the words themselves, make up their own sheet in a format that they like. Actually, probably most people, or at least roughly half or so, just simply do this on a blank sheet of paper. But at the top, you'll always put a coordinate, and your name and date and time go on the right. These are like preliminaries. Do say the coordinate out loud. Say it again when you write it here. And you saw examples of this. I didn't point it out, but a lot of people in formal trainings and just informal will write the coordinate and do what's almost like a doodle. It's called an ideogram. It's sort of like a pictogram. The information tends to come up fast, and it starts like with this ideogram kind of thing. And then you do your transcript. The gestalts, this first impression gestalts comes up. You do your sketches. Actually, the examples you saw, the sketches were intermixed with the text, and of course that's fine. Everybody comes up with their own style. Let me just say one more word about AOLs. AOLs are called analytical overlays. One of the things you will actually learn is to distinguish the feeling of a information, because all of this is informational, information coming up from the UCC through your subconscious into your now conscious moment, from something which comes from your intellect. It just feels different. You know, it'll be like, I think it is, but it'll just be a thought. You know, you'll get red, and then you'll get round, and suddenly you'll say basketball. Now, you know, there are a lot of red round things. A tomato is red and round. There are a lot of red round things. But when basketball came into your head, that's kind of an example of a higher level analytical overlay. And you just write it over here if it feels like it came there. I mean, if somehow you did think it came from your sub, and that might indeed happen, you know, you might have gotten an image of a basketball at the same time or something, fine. But often you'll get this feeling, you'll write it here, and we use the word trash because in writing it down, you want to write everything down. In writing it down, it relieves you and allows you then to get back into your subconscious and get another element from the target through your feedback session. So most people go down several times, and the information tends to come up quickly. You get it, you record it on your transcript, and then you go down again into your subconscious. Okay, so with that, let's do it. You know your cue. Your cue is describe and sketch your 738505 feedback target. The cool down is important. That's where you quiet the mind. Hemisync is one technique which allows that. In fact, Joe McMonagle said that was the biggest benefit he got from it, is he was able to get through cool down a lot quicker. It's what I'm going to play for you is 10 minutes. Roughly half, everybody is different, but roughly half can be used for the cool down and half for doing your session. You're setting your intention expectation right now, and you're witnessing and recording what your sub provides. I'm going to click on this link in a moment. In this link, and you may have your own. People have their own approaches, which is fine. You can just turn off the sound. But this will have 5-minute notice, which is reasonably quiet, but it'll tell you when it's 5 minutes, and then a 1-minute notice at the end. And I'll also verbally tell you when you have a minute to go.
5:05.
Okay, I've got somebody's mic. Let me mute him. Okay, so you're ready to go. You might stretch a little bit. And I'm going to start the 10-minute cool down and transcript description now. Okay, have about a minute left. Okay, come on back to your normal waking state. You might stretch a little bit. See what I have here. Okay. I hope that felt good. The remote viewing sessions get you into a different place. So now let's go. And let's talk about judging. Okay, you with me all? I think so. So, you've now done your remote viewing session. You connected up with your feedback target. Let's find out which target. That's the analysis judging session. And the computer has randomly associated one photo site with yes, a different photo site with no. And our job is to match the transcript to two possible targets and decide which one, in fact, we think is best. And I want to tell you a few things about this. We had a presentation by Deborah, who brought in an interesting new feature. And this concerns the fact that we not only get noise, which of course is annoying, right? Where your transcript has stuff which is sort of not relevant to either of the two possible photo sites, but also what we get is something called displacement. And displacement has been around ever since they first started studying this stuff, Duke University, where you would actually get a good, in our terms, you would get a good description of the wrong photo site. It would turn out to be the wrong photo site. And what's so amazing about that is this happens with what's called independent judging, when they would have an independent judge who would be the only one that would see the two possible targets, so the two photo sites, and yet the viewer would describe the wrong one, which is one the viewer would never see. So obviously getting the information from the UCC through the judge, because the judge was the only one who saw it. And that's an amazing phenomenon. So it's clear that the judging session does, like everything else, it's entangled. So Deborah came up with this rather dramatic idea of getting in your mind that this is a dangerous area you're getting into, because you could share wrong information. And that's kind of an interesting concept. You can see the symbol she has here. So here's your feedback session. And yes, you want to entangle the good stuff with the remote viewing session, but not the bad stuff, like if you had two pictures. So you only want to do the right one. So her idea was to somehow get in your head that this is a danger zone, and that the remote viewing session stay away from what we're about to do, and also the feedback session. Stay away, stay away. All of this in my mind comes down to minimizing the entanglement with the analysis judging session. And so, and I've actually experimented with this, but not enough to have real data, but this might resonate with some of you, that you can have on the outside, it says danger and all of that, but we do know that everything is connected. The UCC, you can't get rid of it completely, but you try to minimize it. So how about mentally building an isolated space-time capsule which just contains your judging session, okay? And you isolate it, maybe you build a wall, and you intend and expect that your judging session will have minimum interaction with anything outside the session, anything outside what we're about to get into. Okay, so I'm doing that right now. I'm building a wall, just taking a moment to really isolate this as much as possible. Okay, so I just did that. Now, let's talk about how we do our judging. Remember, what's going on here is you now have your transcript. We are shortly going to get the two possible targets, and you're going to then compare those targets, each one individually, and ultimately come up with a confidence ranking for it. And the confidence ranking scale was done by Russ Targ at Stanford Research Institute, trying to put words to the 0 to 7 scale, which would indicate how confident are you that this indeed is a target. So 0, 1, and 2 are from no correspondence to what basically would be chance. Just by chance, if you took a word at random from the dictionary, it might match something in the transcript, and all of it could just be chance. You just get a few things, and you just have a sense. You didn't make any psychic connection. The CR, we call these confidence rankings CR, the CR of 3 is a mixture of correct and incorrect elements, but enough of the former, the correct elements, that the viewer has made psychic contact with the target. Really got some information which was psychically, but a mix. A 4, is, he uses now the word good correspondence with several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect information. So what's happening here is you're getting less and less incorrect information, more and more good correspondence with multiple, several matchable elements. Now what we do is we take 3.5. We don't want a 3, but we'll take 3.5 to be wagerable. So if you give a confidence ranking of 3.5, you're saying, I think that's wagerable. A 5 elevates to good correspondence, but now with unambiguous, unique, matchable elements, and still some incorrect information. The unambiguous, unique, he's trying to be precise, but you can't. Unambiguous has ambiguity in it. However, the idea here is if you give it a 5, I will probably ask you, what did you think was unambiguous and unique? And you ought to be able to point to a few things, or you'll say, oh, there was so much that only fits this target that I considered it unambiguous, unique. But a 5 is very good. In fact, in many ways, for many transcripts, it's about as high as you can go. Why is that working backwards? Interesting. Because when you get into a 6 and a 7, you're starting to get into the analytical overlay regime, where you name the function of the target, or you might in fact actually name the target. And you get less and less incorrect information. By a 7, you just basically have no incorrect information. So a 5 is really very, very good, 5.5. When you get up there, those are just really excellent, excellent sessions. Okay, so that's that system. It's really, ultimately, you are communicating. I don't know if any of you play bridge, but it's, you're communicating stuff about how good the match is. That's what it comes down to. And that is relevant to how much do you invest, for example. Okay, you expect when you get the really good matches, you have more confidence. Now, today, I'm going to want you to put on your transcript the ultimate confidence ranking for the match with photo site A, which you're going to see shortly, and the match with photo site B. So you'll have on there something that'll say something like CRA equals a number from 0 to 7, CRB a number 0 to 7. And then let's not do it via the chat box. That's what I've done up to now. Now I just want you to put it up there, and I will keep a table because I'm going to make a group prediction, but I'll get the information off of your transcripts that we see. And then you will email all of that, your transcript to me, so we can talk about it. We might as well talk about the transcripts and let everybody look at them. It's always helpful, I think, to see other people's styles and how well they do. I want to emphasize here that the gestalts, the first impression gestalts, Joe McMonagle thinks that these ought to be about 50% of how your judging goes. And in fact, he had an analytical approach for that, which did just that. He, depending on what your ranking for the first impression gestalts were, and that's between 0 and 1, he would do it that way. That would count for 50% of the gestalts, 50% of the ultimate confidence ranking, I'm sorry. And what is this first impression gestalt? It's this thing which smacks you in the face. It gets you in the ballpark. There can be more than one. In fact, the peacock example, we had that really bright color, but you had all those circles, you had something which was alive. There are things like that that hit you right away. And then the other 50% is the weighting, where you counted these A's and B's, which I think you're now familiar with, and you take the ratio of the number of A's divided by the total number of elements, and you count sketches as one or more elements, versus the B. So this, for one ranking of the transcript against, say, photo site A, you will get a ratio of the A's, so that's a number between 0 and 1. And then the figs gives you a number between 0 and 1. And then you would multiply that by 3.5, which would get you up to 7. So if you had the perfect gestalt match and all your elements matched, you would get up to a 7. So this is close to, but not exactly the same as just using the words. And but I wanted you to have this idea which ultimately you then come up with the confidence ranking. So this is a chart way. Some people don't like the math of it, but if your first impression gestalts gives you a 0.6, you could then add 0.6 to whatever your ratio is and end up somewhere in here. So with that, thought I got rid of that. Let's do it. And what does that mean? What that means is we go back to this page where we got our coordinate. Now you have your transcript. And now you, when you're doing this on your own, would browse onto your computer. And I think all of us know at this point, using our smartphones or scanners, how to get our transcript onto a computer. And then you would upload it to the server using, click on Browse. You would find your transcript, and I have what I call a dummy transcript. So just so we can move on, I will use the dummy. So now it's in there, and then you simply click Submit. Now, no, as soon as you click Submit, the two pictures, well, they'll come up one at a time, but you're now in your judging mode, which is mostly intellectual. So there you go. So there's the first picture. Now, some people like to just judge their transcript against photosite A even before they see photosite B. Others, and I'm going to now show you photosite B because for these classes, I want to give you time to do both. That's photosite B. And then down here, you can see both. And some people just go right here because on their transcript, they'll go through each element and mark an A or a B or an A and B or nothing. But other people like to do one transcript at a time. You need to figure out which way you think is best. What's key is to be sort of totally honest about it. You know what I mean? You're a judge. You don't let anything influence you other than how good the match is. But you recognize that by the time the information comes from the feedback session, through the UCC, up to your subconscious and your conscious mind on what you put on the transcript, it often might use metaphors. It might be similar to, but not exactly like. You've seen good examples of that. So here you are. You've got your transcript. Let's do the judging. Mark on your transcript against all the elements, an A, a B, an A and a B, or nothing if it doesn't match either. And then, and I'll put the TARG scale up shortly, mark a CRA equals 0 to 7, CRB 0 to 7, and then send it off to me, to my email. And I'll put my email in the chat box in a minute. In fact, let me do that now. Okay, and now I want to do one here. I want you to be able to see this as well. Okay, looks like as big as it's going to get. When you're doing this on your own, you can always get the SRI TAR scale just by clicking here while you're doing your judging. Okay, Catherine. Yes, Patricia, let me look here. In fact, maybe I can keep my email over here now. Let's see. Oh, Patricia, I got it this time. Excellent. Okay, but let's wait before we get that specific. So I've got one transcript. When you've got your transcript sent, why don't you just simply put in the text box transcript sent? And when we get several of those, we'll start looking at them. Thanks, Beatrice. Okay, you know, since we have so many people, I think what I'm going to do is actually start looking at transcripts and recording the results. So let's do that. So Patricia, let's take yours first. Here we go. Let's see, how do I move it over? Okay. So the rest of you, please take all the time. The judging is very important. And too often when people get misses or whatever, they'll come back and say, I don't believe I could have missed that. So you take your time. This is intellectual. So even though we may be making noise, or you can turn off your mic, take as much time as it takes to do what you feel is good judging. And having said that, Patricia, I see what you did. Let me write that in here. You gave A a 1 and B a 4.5. And of course, everybody does their own totally independently. You must not be biased by what anybody else has done. Nobody's perfect, so there really is nobody else to copy. You've got to trust yourself. Okay, Patricia, why don't you just go over this, relatively quickly because there's so many of us.
Yeah, I know, and I also have to leave very soon. So
Yeah.
This time I definitely got everything from an outdoors
Yes.
scene. And I asked myself, is there people in this picture? Is there people around? And I said no.
Mhm.
So, and
Yeah.
I don't know, you don't see people in the picture B, right? And,
No,
I tend to see both elements of both targets usually. But today I said to myself, okay, you need to get a hit. So give me the picture that will give us a hit. And I don't know, we don't know yet, right? But
right.
at least
But
I
you
didn't get
clearly went to B, and that was very good. That was a good thing to ask, whether or not there's a person in there, because that certainly goes along with A. That's excellent.
So, well, that's all I can say. I have to leave now, but it's
Okay.
been wonderful.
Let-
And
Okay, let me ask you one question, because you said you usually get both. Did you do any, try to build an isolated place and separate this from anything else? Did you?
No, the only thing I did is say, you have to give me a hit. I even wrote down the word hit. So
Okay.
don't give me, because I mean, if you go checking my previous transcripts, you will see that I get elements from both pictures. And then it's hard for me to say which one will be the right.
Right. Well,
so this time I wrote it down on the paper. Hit,
excellent.
the word. So
excellent.
But we don't know yet, so we will see if it works.
Yes, but I really like that you're making it personal. You're doing what feels right to you.
Yeah.
That is great. Thank you. You
Okay.
have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Okay. Okay, let's get Beatrice. Okay. Why?
Hey Marty, you can rotate the picture with this down left comment.
Here. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Beatrice. Let me see what. Oh, did you put your confidence rankings on here?
No, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Why don't you just tell me what they are, and I'll put it in my table.
Yeah, it's my first time sending the transcript. I've been just watching your teaching a couple times here and there. So the first thing came into was a person. I feel like a woman with a long hair, something long, but I thought it was long hair. I think that's my impression. And it was a puffy sleeves, so that's why I put there. And then skirts, and then they all look white. And then somehow I feel it's like outside the window, like a balcony, the window. It's just calm and peaceful. I feel like it's a picture to me, but I also see the green. I think I probably mixed the targets because, to be honest with you, when you gave me when you said the target, I didn't write down the number. I just focused that targets that you said you want us to work on.
Okay.
So I didn't even write down the number. So maybe I'm targeting both at the same time, but I couldn't. The thing just kind of in and out with a lot of greens and very peaceful and calm, and then some skies. I'm not sure about water, but I see kind of blue, so I thought probably water.
You got outdoor. What is the word with a question mark?
Question mark is like I wasn't sure. Like I even gave the age because I was thinking myself, that woman, how old that woman
Yeah,
could be.
what is the word? Is that balcony? I just don't know what the word is.
Yeah, balcony. I'm sorry.
Oh, it is balcony.
Like a balcony, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm looking at this, and you didn't judge it.
No, I don't know.
But you got the woman first too.
Yes, I got the woman.
I mean, come on, you're definitely more towards A than B, and you shouldn't have any trouble marking this either. I mean, like peaceful goes for both. Nice weather, I don't know, certainly goes for the second one. But I mean, to get a woman like that, that's pretty good. Whether or not you have enough other stuff to make it wagerable would be the question you'd have to face up to. But just because of all the things you said, I'm going to just do it for you as an independent judge. I would give A 3, and it could be a 3.5, frankly. If anybody else wants to comment on this, feel free. And I mean, that's the Gestalt. I mean, you nailed that. The other one you didn't, well, you said outdoor, peaceful. Yeah, I'd probably give that a 2.5. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to judge. You need to start. Are you in one of our groups, Beatrice?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so presumably you do some judging there, but this one, as I say, to get a woman like that first thing, probably should be a 3.5.
I think the only thing that I think I'm really happy is the white clothes. I just feel like the white and then puffy sleeves that came up to me. And
Yeah.
then I think the long hair maybe is the gown. I feel like something long on top of her, around her hair. I mean, around her head.
Yeah, well, that fits with the gown, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm going to make it a 3.5.
Thank you.
No, I so immediately we get two different sides, which is common, unfortunately. But everybody can't be the same way. Okay, let me go to the next one. So I've got Beatrice, Danilo. Okay.
Yeah. So I did 2 pages. I did sketches like the first page and the second page of the PDF. I did a little model.
Yep, there you go. Oh, and you even did clay. Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so just
my first perceptions were biological sound of continuous low tones. This I have if there is something mechanical at the target normally. Then I had a sort of aesthetic impact of like 2 lines. I thought it was a panorama or something like that. Then thin multiples coming out from something circular. Mm-hmm. Then a white tall thing. I don't know what. And then some motion, vibrations, and then this form, the last one from the first page. I think it's like the street with a little bit of inclination.
Yeah, you had a lot of A's on that page, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and here you've got a lot of B's.
Yeah. I started with this tall thing that I can see on the photo side, mm-hmm. and I had a perception of this linear direction with some kind of buildings that were in different positions, and then something forming a rounded shape that I can see in the photo site B on the right side. So I give the 5 for B and 3 for A.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you, what is unique? And what's the other word he used? A 5. And again, don't take any of this as a criticism. All I do is share what comes.
It's for learning, yeah.
Yeah, because I looked here, and
a lot of A, yes.
It looks like it really should be A, though biological. This would be biological too, unless do you mean people when you say biological, or
normally for me it's living being.
Okay, and that's why it's important. See, for other people, this would be biological as well, and that's why a lot of people like self-judging. And here you have circles, and you're marking it as an A.
Yeah, because I can see other were circles in photos.
Yeah, you see where I'm coming from. It looks like this one. I mean, I just have a hard time seeing that as a 5. Now, I'd love you to disagree with me.
Yep.
You see, here you use biologicals as a B, too. I just have to say that if I were your subconscious, I'd be confused in what you mean. You told me one thing here. Again, I'm not cross-examining. I'm just...
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Okay. Here you told me one thing. It usually means a person. But here, you mark multiple biologicals as a B.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if your sub would... You ought to define that.
I understand what you mean, yes. I did a 5 because I had this feeling doing the model that there is something vertical with a relation between two places. And I see that at the end of the street there is something like a building.
Right.
at
So
the other
this would
side.
be, so you see this sort of as the road.
Exactly. So this was my element that I say that this is a 5, because there is another building beside too, and there are some buildings too beside. So
okay.
But I understand what you mean, because
Right.
photosite A, there are elements too, well, the color and even the patterns of the chair.
Right. See, and if yeah, I mean, I agree. This looks much more like B. Okay, I'll mark it the way you did, but
it's too much.
we talked about it.
What would you say? Would you say 3.5?
You see, you have to know yourself. Some people don't judge the way we did it. What they look for is something which is really very good.
Yeah.
And even though there's a lot of other stuff which isn't, and that's what you did here. What you basically said is your feeling
exactly
was that this was good. This I understood. It's not marginal. Though I wish I saw a clear vertical tower. But maybe you're talking about something like here.
I can see a tower, but for me, there was something tall.
Well, the tall
like
trees.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I would go to a 5, but I might go to a 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm crying, but it's all right.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to make it a 3 and a 4.
Yeah.
Under your name. Okay, very good. Thank you, Danilo.
Thank you.
And let's see who else we have. Next is Vince. Okay, and there you go. Okay. Why this should fill up the other half here. Okay, I will do it manually. Okay, Vince, you've got a Mike, you want to talk to us a little bit about this guy? And let me see what your CRs are. 1 and a 4. Okay, let's focus on the 4. What did you get? Are you still here? Yep, there you are. Oops, except you don't have a mic or anything. Okay, I will look. Boy, I see you there, but I don't see a symbol for you. That's the first time that's happened, huh? Okay, so let's see if I can, why, okay, so you got 7 out of 13. And typically, if the number's less than half, you know, you're falling, well, pretty low, but this is good. 7 out of 13, you're a little over half. And let's see if I see your gestalt on B. Okay, maybe that's a road. You would think, again, when the stuff comes into you, there's usually more than you can get down. Soft pointed round, white, beige, greenish is certainly good. I would give that a big B. Rural, that's very good. Fresh. Okay, excellent. Yeah, something like rural, you know, that's not one of those typical words that would come into your consciousness. So that's good. Yeah, very good. I definitely have no problem with that judging. Okay, so that's Vince. And we'll give Vince a 1 and a 4. Let's see the next one. Millie. 2.5 and a 2. Okay, Millie. It's probably, if you have anything you want to add. And remember, passes are okay. Never get upset with a pass. They're things bigger than you that could be going on, and a pass is probably exactly the right thing at this time. You know, pass is, of course, much better than a miss. You know, everything is aimed towards getting hits and not getting misses. So there's nothing wrong with the pass. Let me just see if I would judge it. Well, yeah, you've marked your A's and B's. You certainly have green. Yeah, I don't see anything Gestalt-like. Okay. Thank you. And, you know, participation is a big factor in all of this. Let's do Lila. Okay. There you are. I need to rotate you. I can do that. I can do that with Snagit. There we go. The editor, image, rotate clockwise. Now we got to make you bigger somehow. Why aren't you bigger? That's interesting. You started out so big here. Just give me, I'll just try a little longer, and then we may have to read it sideways, and you can just talk to it that way. But I would like to look at it too. Just give me 1 minute here. There is a way of resizing. Image, resize image. 896 pixels is a lot. Unless I'm not looking at the right picture. Okay, I'm sorry, Lila. Why don't you just talk to us about it? We can sort of see it, and we can certainly see your shapes.
I don't normally get tastes or let me see here. I don't normally get tastes or smells, so I didn't get any taste. But my smells were chocolate, and chocolate to me is synonymous with love.
I get that.
Okay, all right. And what is that on the left? Love.
Right, interesting.
So that's why I labeled that an A. And then I got my textures, fabric and flesh.
Huh. Okay.
So there you go. And then my colors, orange, pink, and red. Well, you know, white people aren't really orange or pink or red, but they're kind of a combination of all those colors. Mm-hmm. So I labeled those all A. So I'm mostly going towards the bride being,
right.
My sound's melodious.
There's something going on. Yeah.
Oh,
that fits. Sure.
Sure. My feelings are gentle, happy, and giddy. Now this is after my computer went to sleep on me at least a dozen times during your webinar. And during my viewing, it went to sleep on me twice.
Wow.
So I had to turn around and go to my laptop and kind of get back into it. So I made notes. I wrote extended notes here that's what happened. But anyway, regardless, I feel like I hit the target. Or well.
What did you give? What ranking did you give for the A?
I gave it a 5.
Okay. And what you said made sense to me.
Yeah.
Including the chocolate part. What's the B?
Well, and then if you look at my ideograms, if you put one of them, on its kind of rotated a quarter turn, it would be the shape of the bride with her dress.
Right.
To me.
Okay.
So,
Okay. No, I have no problem with the 5. I just can't find the CRB. What did you give the B?
Oh, I gave it a 2.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you, Lila.
You're welcome.
And let me see who is next on the email list here. We got 1, 2, 3. We got 4 more. So there's Evelyn. Okay, very good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Uh-huh. And let me get rid of this one.
And listening to Lila, I realized I forgot to mark a couple of things that should have been A's, so it actually should be a little bit higher.
Okay, but you went on the A side as well.
Yes, definitely. The figs at the top were all green, gaiety, biological, indoor, light, somebody there, land,
Right.
metal, twist. All of those basically could go with that picture. And then all about singing, and a drape with fringe, a skirt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the one I forgot to mark was She Can Do It and violin music. I didn't mark those. I had them over in the AOL column, but definitely that would go with a wedding.
Violin music, interesting. Yeah.
And the last sketch I made, it kind of looked like flames going up in my mind, but then it was shaped just like her standing in that dress. So I gave the sketch an A, even though it wasn't like flames but it was pushing upward. If you look, it's kind of like cone shape pushing upward. So yeah, everything pretty much matched her. But the thing I found interesting was, who was the gentleman that had the pole that he made with the green?
Yeah.
I couldn't see on that who that was. I saw a shape like a pole, only it had kind of cross beams attached at the top. So that's what I drew there, pole with cross beams. So I gave that more of a B than I did an A, because it almost looks like the map upside down. But I also thought it kind of looked like her standing with the window, her arm in the window. So I gave it a little A, but I gave it a big B. So it's kind of interesting. Both of us saw a pole, and whatever that means.
Right.
But the fringiness, and then the last thing that I saw that I marked with a B, that the cut looks like an eye on its side. He also drew something like that, and I took that to be the thing down at the bottom with the trees. I don't know what else to call it, but it's interesting because it was quite similar to what he drew. So we both saw a couple of things the same that were hard to figure out what they were.
Yep. Okay, thank you. And I like you're using Joe's technique straight up, and that's good. And you feel comfortable with that. It's just working for you, so that's terrific. A number of people were not happy with it, so I sort of made it more, I'm not emphasizing it as heavily as I did. Okay, very good. Thank you, Evelyn. Let's go to Arthur. Okay, Art, you've got a mic. Let's write.
Okay, I'm on?
Yep, there you go. Yep, we hear you just fine. So let me just see okay, you gave A of 4 and B of 1. And why don't you talk to us about the 4 in particular?
Okay, all right. The 4 was mainly A because when I have number 1, I saw there's a jagged something in the background. Now, what I do is I'm returning to this, where I have the right on the lower right-hand corner. I have kind of like a diagram: 1, 2, 3. So 1 is coming in to the where the top of the A is, and also the top of the B.
Mm-hmm.
I have a there's a jagged, like a mountain range, like I call it, a jagged, maybe a mountain range, something, a jagged something. So that's in both the photo sites.
Okay. Okay, but your ultimate judging, you didn't just count A's and B's here. This is a CR. I should interpret this as confidence rankings, or did you just count the A's?
That's just a score. A is 1, B is 0 for that one portion right there.
Yeah, but I'm talking about down here where the confidence rankings. So these are confidence.
I scored it just a 4 and a B overall.
Okay, a real confidence rankings, not just counting. Okay.
Okay. So the second is the center, where I noted there's like like some short fingers. Just a description. It's not identifying the object, but it's just for my idea. I can go back to it. Oh, so this is what I visioned. I'm going by all vision here. So what I saw was the say the couch in the on the right hand side, and then the chair. It sort of looks like fingers, but curiously, her fingers like that are on the chair, right dead center.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I gave that a 1 for a point, and B 0. Mm-hmm. The third one was the I looked, I saw this like an ironing board, for lack of a better, but just the description.
Right, that's what it looks like.
Supported by a post, and it was dead white, and with something holding it up, which was like a black post, so a dark post, which that's my description. And I gave that a 1 and a 1 for both the white and also the angle that she is in, like it's like the angle in the way that's situated. So that went down in number 3, in my diagram on the right. That fits in number 3 there. So that's what made it fit in. Then I put the AOLs came in afterwards. All of a sudden, these came in all of a sudden. So there's the 45-degree angle in with it looks like a shelf with a little pod underneath, and that's I see it now as the chair, her dress and the chair, and then another AOL came in right after that, which was it looks like two sort of like a intertwined, I call it foils. It's something like what hit was that the lady in one of our classes in Las Vegas, the Russian lady, where they had those intertwined foils, those intertwined aluminum foils, like. So I got that, and that's what I wrote that. Then I ended the session and totaled it up. I figured, what's my overconfidence rating? I figured 5. Well, cut it down to 4.
Right. I look at those and I can see why you did that. Well, you explained it, and each of them go in that direction. I just didn't see anything which was particularly strong. But that's okay. You didn't go for 5. 5, you usually want something which is really strong. So that makes sense. I like the fingernails, even though it might have been something else. Okay, Arthur, thank you.
Thank you.
And let's go to Anita. There we go.
Okay.
Let me do that upside down. Yeah, I think so.
Here we go.
There you go, Anita. Make it a little bigger so we can all see it.
I also got the fingers first. Dead center in the picture.
Did you? Interesting.
Yes, it's so weird.
Yeah, isn't it?
I think it's probably because weddings one associate with the rings and putting that ring on the finger. And at the bottom, I got confetti. There's no confetti in the picture, but just the idea of a wedding.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. That's a little bit like chocolate.
And like a person holding a thing with a glass or a tin, clinging a spoon against it, like when they're making a toast.
Mm-hmm.
That was also interesting to me. That was the sound I heard. But I also got like a green grassy field or pasture. So I actually got both, but the wedding definitely outnumbered the confidence rankings and everything. I got the window clearly at the bottom, the frames when you look out the window. I got like the light the bride has in front of her, radiating the dress she's got on. It's like a cone radiating out. It actually reminded me of an ice cream cone, the material of the chair, the texture, and the flowers on the chair. I got flowers.
Yes. Why did your B? I understand your A being strong. Why is the B you gave a 4?
Yeah.
Is that using McMonagle's system? Did it come up to?
I actually I counted the different aspects on the. I gave both gestalts the same scoring, and then I counted the different aspects on the transcript.
And it really. Okay.
And the bride outnumbered the posture.
Wait, but this is the ratio here.
Yes.
You got 30 out of 43 versus 13 out of 43.
Yes, that's quite a difference.
It just looks like your B is too high, and so I just want to make sure I understand.
Let me just quickly see it add up again. Maybe I made a mistake.
Do you do the gestalts?
The two gestalts is both. I gave 0.75
for A, and what about for? And then you got a 0.75 for B too.
For B also, so yes.
That's what
because
brought it up.
Yes, I think yes, because I got the fact that it's a grassy field or pasture.
Okay. Yep. That's what did it.
Because I named it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. A 5 and a 4. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Yeah. It is so interesting, isn't it? Fingers.
Yeah.
Let's see now. Okay. Vince is our last one. Oh, but he left, having issues with the Zoom audio hookup. Okay, looks like he left. He said thank you, but I don't see an attachment. Okay, so it looks like we're done here. I didn't miss anybody. Last time I almost missed somebody, so if I haven't shown yours, it takes time, but I still think it's worth letting everybody see what everybody else did. Now, maybe anyway, that's what I've been doing. Okay, so now let me bring over the Excel and make sure yours are right. And I'll now do group managing, and my approach is even though 3.5 is wagerable, I still, since it's at the beginning of wagerable, I just make it a gray. So I've got 1 there. But then anything over that, I'll mark in a color. Probably here, and here. We'll use that. Now let's see if I missed any. Well, it doesn't scream out at you as one or the other, does it? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 yellows. 1, 2, 3, 4 yellows. We've got 2 5s. Oh, we've got 3 5s. Well, Well, I'd have to say at the least we'll lean towards A. And this was a 3.5. Okay, hey, some of you chime in here. So I'd say we're between A and passing and leaning towards A. Anybody else have any comments that they'd like to add on that? Well, you got to do your own, and you'll run into things just like. Yeah.
Marty, if I was going to gamble, I would go with A.
Yeah, we rather invest though.
If I was to invest, I would invest.
Okay, fair enough. Did someone else say something? I thought I heard someone else. It looks.
Lila.
Hi, Lila.
Hi. I've been listening to all the transcripts describing photosite A, and I'm just overwhelmed with what people have come up with, and I just think that is the way to go. Hang on here.
I'm certainly, as I said, leaning in that direction too. The kind of matches that we got with A seemed better, but Patricia's was quite good. It's hard to remember. Well, this is the issue the group manager has to do. I'm going to do it. Okay.
So photosite A, if I can point out, photosite A also has 2 5s, and the highest on photosite B are 4s.
Right.
So
that's what I said.
3 5s.
The two.
3 5s.
Yeah, that's right. 3 5s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so prediction is photosite A. Okay. I agree. So I'll make it a 5. Okay, so now for any of the newbies, now you have to fill it in here. And of course, you would be doing it for your own transcript. And I'm going to give that a 5. I'm going to give this a 4. And yeah, let's see. We had 3 CR equal 5s for photosite A. Highest for photosite B was 4.5 with 2 CR equal 4s. Okay. That's it. Let's do it. I don't know which way. We don't know at this point, notice if it's up or down. The computer does everything. Yeah, go ahead, Lola.
Oh, okay. So I see 3 CR4s. Way down at the bottom, Anita?
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, but the 3 CR5s are compelling.
It'd be great if that were a card game, huh?
Right. Got
Or
a
like a poker hand or
three
something.
5s, right.
It's 3 4s.
Though I don't know what we count the 4.5 as. If we round down. Okay, anyway, let's stick with this. Okay, so I'm going to submit it. So this is what you do next. You simply make your judgment, and usually it would be just on your transcript, though you've got to witness what your group manager goes through. Oh, and the answer is yes. And notice this is the first time we know that. Okay. Yes. I always erase this anyway, but it's now in there. So that's it. Very good. So anybody who's playing cryptocurrencies, if they want to, this says it's going to get above 10,000. Let me now go back to PowerPoint slide. Yeah, and I just wanted to repeat. I've used this before, but it is so good. Here's our UCC, but this is you now. Think of this as being you. So you, inside the universe of collective consciousness, you have a fuzzy boundary, but you are connected to all of it, of course. Now, if we look at you this way, here you are, the same thing. I think the idea that the UCC is inside you, but the connections have a fuzzy boundary, really wants to emphasize how close you are to this UCC if you don't distance yourself. And Skip Atwater, who headed the RV Army unit, in fact, he was directed by his superiors to initiate it. This is a quote from his book. He's got a book. Some say that we pass from spirit into the physical at birth, and conversely pass from the physical world into spirit at death. I say that we never pass from the spirit. And I just, again, want to emphasize you are so close to all the information you want. Just know that. And then this is this Rumi quote, which in a way says the same thing. First, he emphasizes love. We are born of love. Love is our mother. But you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Okay. So I thank you for joining me. And if there are any questions or comments, now's the time. I have a question for you. Do you see this little red? Do you see this red here on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I never got rid of that, but that's okay. It's minor. Okay. Questions, comments?
I just have a real quick question, if you don't mind.
Of course. No.
What exactly was this going to predict again about Bitcoin? Yeah.
That Bitcoin is on that given day going to get to be over, well, here, let's go back to it. Let's see, what's the easiest?
I was curious about the date.
Yeah, let me find that. The best way, I think, is this way. I should be able to see it here. Somehow, I think here we go. Okay, so will the Bitcoin future contract, but this is, and the reason I had to be this specific here is because there are a lot of different places Bitcoins are traded. So this had to be the futures right here on Interactive Brokers. Over 10,000 on April 23rd.
All right, thank you.
And in fact, now that you say that, let me write that in my Excel. sheet. So we'll have this up to date. And we said yes. So we'll be doing the feedback on that, you know, depending on what else is going on, but certainly it'll be after the 23rd. And I will save that. Okay, any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we can end it here. Okay. And really, very good. And I thank all of you. You know, this is, for me, all of this is a passion, this precognition and making it real. And I could not do this without all of you. So thank you, and you all keep precogging, and I'll end the meeting now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.